Uh, Next up, we have Daniela Schardinger. Daniela is the VP of Marketing and Medical Affairs at Ocon Healthcare. She has over 10 years experience in marketing, sales, and business development within the healthcare and legal industry, and serves as an advisor on the FemTech Lab Accelerator. She will be talking to us today about the novel or smart delivery technology that finally fits women's anatomy. So welcome, Daniela.
Thank you, Anna, and thanks everyone for sharing these great innovations with us today and all these insights. I've written down a lot of notes already. I will talk a little bit more today with you about novel smart drug delivery technology that finally fits the women's anatomy. Before I do that, I would like to take you on a journey inside the uterus with me. We're talking today about new horizons, and Ocon is taking an innovative approach to women's health through the uterus, where we spend most of our day actually. We're researching the uterine cavity. We're finding solutions to treat from inside the uterus various diseases that we believe where the uterus is key to diagnostics and also treatment solutions. But the question is, what do we really know about the uterus, and how much research is there available about the uterine cavity today? We see there's a massive lack of research and an information gap. It starts that the majority of gynecologists and healthcare professionals today still uses two-dimensional ultrasound in their daily practice as state of the art. Three-dimensional ultrasound is actually available since 1987, yet the majority of OBGYNs don't revert to it. And there is actually territories where OBGYNs don't perform ultrasound imaging of the uterus at all. So you can imagine there is certain diseases and issues that go undetected for a long time. On top of that, the technology that is introduced into the uterus today, called intrauterine devices that deliver drugs or substances into the uterus, are totally outdated. The state-of-the-art intrauterine devices have been invented in the 60s. And these are the devices we're still majorly using today. There hasn't been any innovation, and we're actually relying on technology that was introduced back when there was no three-dimensional ultrasound imaging even available. So you can imagine we have much better and more modern technology at our hands today. On top of that, size does matter, and there is a lot of misinformation still out there on how big the uterine cavity actually is, not only amongst women, but also amongst healthcare professionals. The uterine cavity in width is actually only 2.4 centimeters throughout different age groups. So it doesn't matter if it's a 15-year-old woman or a woman going into menopause, the average size is the size of a small strawberry. If we take the traditional devices available today that show a width of over 3 centimeters with their arms and put those in an average size uterus, you can imagine there will be all sorts of issues and side effects related to these devices that are just too big for the uterus. Some of these drawbacks and issues are malposition. That's when an intrauterine device shifts or turns inside the uterine cavity. 75% of women with such malpositioned IUDs actually complain about either pain or bleeding. The second issue is these devices are too big and rigid. You can see these arms need space to unfold inside the cavity. These are blind procedures. So there are perforations occurring where the device actually is put through the uterine wall If this goes undetected, it can have serious health issues. It will need surgery. So this is not only a health concern, but also a cost concern. We at OCON have looked at all these drawbacks these IUDs show today, and have actually looked on how we can design a product that is shaped for the female anatomy and for a uterus and for what we know of the uterus today. We know the uterine cavity is a three-dimensional cavity with a space, and we believe a ball-shaped three-dimensional intrauterine device that's high-tech, that's flexible and adjusting to the contractions of the uterine cavity is a much, much better carrier and a much more modern carrier that's better tolerated for any drug or substance that can be introduced into the uterine cavity. It actually has a built-in safety mechanism. You can see when it is introduced, it turns away from the uterine wall, protecting the wall, leading to less issues with perforation. It has the thinnest insertion tube to also allow for a less painful insertion procedure. And finally, adapts to the shape and size of the uterine cavity. Also, it doesn't matter if it shifts and turns inside the cavity, it will stay a ball no matter which way it turns. So we are actually looking at the uterine cavity in new perspectives by putting a symmetrical spherical carrier in the uterine cavity to deliver various drugs. Women have to suffer enough throughout their whole life. It starts with the first menstruation, premenstrual syndrome, heavy periods, painful periods, fibroids, myomas, and throughout the whole life, women still have to carry the burden of family planning and contraception. Women are suffering. Abnormal uterine bleeding is the fourth most common reason for OBGYN visits. Over 40% of women suffer from depression due to heavy periods. Over 70% of women have uterine fibroids by the age of 50. Colored women are actually twice as likely to develop a uterine fibroid, and women still carry the burden of family planning today. We say it's enough, women, you need to stop siding with side effects. Over 20% of women discontinue their contraceptive due to side effects, and women actually have a 1.7-fold greater risk of developing adverse reactions to treatments compared to men. And these systemic side effects from taking pills or procedure complications include headaches, migraines, fatigue, depression, nausea, venothrombotic events, organ failure, uterine adhesions, and even death. So we at OCON are really committed to taking away these pain points and these side effects as much as we can. We are over 85% women, so we develop our products for women, by women, and we introduce finally solutions that are fit for the women's anatomy. You can see here our three-dimensional ball-shaped platform, and you can put any drug or substance on it for various indications. We have an hormone-free contraception, an intrauterine device that's already marketed, but we're also researching and developing products for heavy and abnormal uterine bleeding, uterine fibroids, cancer and endometriosis, hormonal therapies, menopause, and the list goes on. We are hoping that eventually we'll be able to put a little chip on our three-dimensional platform to monitor various conditions. Microbiomes inside the uterus is huge now. So we want to really be side by side with the women throughout their life stages and have a true platform technology that is market validated in over 110,000 users globally, in already 30 countries, with reported high quality of life. And we're taking away the systemic side effects women have to suffer from taking pills by actually introducing these drugs to the target tissue through the uterus. We're addressing a global yearly market of over $20 billion. Our intrauterine ball technology is already impacting women's quality of life. We see 20% less malposition side effects with our ballerine. So we're taking away pain and bleeding from women. Over 90% less ectopic pregnancies, which can have a serious health implication for women. Over 40% less perforations with our ballerine, non-hormonal contraceptive. And with our follow-on product, which is currently in phase 2 clinical studies, the IUB Seed, a spherical endometrial ablation device, which is indicated for abnormal and heavy menstruation, we already see over 80% reduction in bleeding. And we're taking away pain with Ocon's platform. No to mild pain scores are reported. So to conclude my presentation, we at Ocon are committed to innovating for women, putting women at the core of our product design, and improving and impacting women's quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What a breath of fresh air to women across the world. I mean, if you've ever had an IUD, that would be such a brilliant and positive thing to hear. Thank you so much, Daniela. And I do hope this has created an opportunity as well for Ocon and Aspira to talk and figure out ways to help support women gynecologically.